Jim Crow 2.0 is really what they're calling it. Now the Lone Star State has its own version of this bill, and that's where we find Cliff Albright, co-founder, executive director of the Black Voters Matter Fund. And Cliff, I feel like you've joined the show. We've had you on so much. You've now traveled to Dallas to fight this, and yours is a needed voice. Welcome back to BNC and start your day.
Hey, good morning, Sharon. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning. Yeah, good morning to you. You're on the road. What happened here in Georgia with Governor Kemp signing it in front of that plantation painting was a disgrace. And now you're in Texas. So what treats are in store for us in this one?
Yeah, it's interesting. When we originally scheduled our bus tour to come to Texas, we were coming to several cities that are having municipal elections. It was really part of continuing our We Got Power tour and letting folks know that 2021 is not an off year, that these local elections, city council, mayors, that these are vitally important for moving our issues of civic engagement and police accountability and gentrification, COVID, all of that. In the midst of that, of course, Texas came out with its own versions of its voter suppression bills, which rivals the likes of what we saw in Georgia, which has many of the same provisions, restricting access, cutting hours and early vote days, and including these attacks on local government, including these attacks on local boards of elections and the ability of the state to limit those powers, in some ways similar takeovers to what we saw in the Georgia bill. And so, we're continuing to work with partners here in this state that are fighting against these bills. We had some partners in some statewide organizations that do incredible work, like Texas Organizing Project, that were at their capital last week testifying and talking about how much of an attack this is, and again, how this is Jim Crow 2.0. So again, this is very much related to what we saw happening in Georgia and what we're seeing happening in 43 states across the country.
Yeah, Cliff, to that point, Texas today, Georgia yesterday, it's coming to a state near you very soon. As you mentioned, 43 states, over 250 bills out there to suppress the vote. So there are a lot of people out there, constituents, who are upset about this. There are a lot of politicians who are upset about this. But we saw in Georgia that we screamed, we yelled, we brought the attention where it needed to be, but they still passed the bill. What more can be done? What's next? What can we do?
Yeah, so a couple of things. One, there's always the litigation battle, right? So we're fighting them in court in terms of Georgia. But two, there's always putting this pressure on this corporate accountability campaign and this federal campaign, because part of the reason that we're still putting pressure on these corporations and part of the reason why we're still going from state to state is to point out that the fact that it's happening in 43 states by definition means that this is a federal issue that's going to require some federal legislation. And we've got legislation pending in both the House and the Senate, passed by the House already, pending in the Senate. That's H.R. 1 and H.R. 4, the For the People Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. If those were put in place, that would cut off at the knees what many of these states are trying to do. So we're here in Texas, not just to fight the battle with the Texas legislature. That's an important battle, but we're also here to make the point that all these struggles are connected. At the end of the day, we're going to need federal action, particularly by Democrats in the Senate, and keeping their caucus together, because they've got the power to move some of this legislation, but they've got to deal with this filibuster in order to get it done. But that's the message that we're doing. We're still fighting. We're still holding the corporations accountable. We're still trying to target, federal legislators, Congress and Senate. And we're telling everybody, call your senator, but don't just call your senator telling them that they need to support voting rights. Tell them that they need to support pressuring their Senate colleagues to support voting rights.
You mentioned the corporations, Cliff. We've talked about them before. Delta put out just personally, I found it an offensive. If you want my business, it's an offensive statement. Either you are with us and the right to be free people who can vote, unfettered access, if you will, to the polls, or you're not. What more can be done? Coca-Cola, Home Depot, there's pressure and calls from Major League Baseball not to have the All-Star game here in Atlanta. They want nothing to go down here in Georgia until this is peeled back. And I also want to ask you about the Lieutenant Governor, Jeff Duncan, one Republican who did not support this, would not be part of the debate because he was opposed to this. Are there others we can call on to say, hey, Talk to your friends.
Yeah, I think the point that you raised about Major League Baseball Players Association is a big one. We really feel like if other associations, some of our partners put together a list for Texas showing like the number of conferences, tournaments, things of that nature that are supposed to take place by major organizations, sports groups, entertainment groups, and the like. And there are literally dozens just for the state of Texas over the next couple of years. The same thing applies to Georgia and to Atlanta. We're putting together a similar list. And if each of those conferences, athletic associations, organizations, trade associations, if they all follow the lead of what we're seeing the Players Association talk about, then that will put pressure on this state, because they count on that. They count on those revenues. This governor, the last thing this governor of Georgia wants to have to happen as he's running for re-election is to be explaining why state revenues went down because of a voter suppression bill that they passed. So, we aren't calling for or trying to hold the space of an active boycott, because that takes up a lot of time and resources on our parts. And you all know we're still trying to be about the business of building power and dealing with these issues, right? But we are encouraging any other association, organization that wants to hold these corporations accountable. That's a part of our corporate accountability campaign. So there's still a lot that can be done, and there's still a lot of partners and voices that we're bringing to the tables in both of these states.
And quickly, Cliff, before we let you go, we have to stay strong as a community. I think it's going to backfire, to be honest with you, because I think it's going to galvanize us a little bit more. But what do you say to the disenfranchised voter that's out there, a black, brown voter that feels like, what? See, I told you my vote doesn't count. I feel defeated. So no matter what I do, no matter how much I yell, no matter how much I scream, I voted in 2020, it still doesn't matter, because now they can come in there and overturn my vote if they feel like it. So what's your message to the people who out there who may feel a little defeated right now?
That's a great question, Mike. The main thing that we tell them is, look, the reason they're doing all this is not because they're winning, it's because they're losing. It's because they're scared. Think about your lives and your interactions. Anytime somebody's ever cheated you in a game, right? In a spades tournament or something, anytime that's ever happened, it's been because they were losing. Right? And so we don't want our folks to, be not dismayed. What we're seeing happening is because they know that we are winning. In fact, sometimes they know our power even better than we know our power. And so we tell people, don't be discouraged, right? Be encouraged, because what this means is that we have power. That's the same message we told folks in Georgia after 2018, when we saw that election stolen from us. And what we saw happen is that we came back stronger in 2020 and shocked the country. So that's the message that we're delivering to people. And Sharon, yes, that Delta statement was gaslighting. You would have thought that Governor Kemp himself had written that statement for Delta.
Just so disappointed.
No, this is good for everybody. This is good for you, Cliff. You got extended voting hours on Sunday. No, we're not going to feed you.
We're stupid.
Yeah, no.
Oh, man.
Hey, the analogy of breaking it down to spades, that was great, Cliff. That was, if somebody cheating in spades, somebody reneging, they're reneging. They're reneging right now. They can't cheat. Cliff, always great talking to you. I know we'll be talking to you throughout this entire process, man. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both.
All right, we'll be right back on Start Your